OutKick 360 is back alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharsky. I'm Jonathan Hutton. Glad you're with us. Lance Lee, Jacob Swanson, David Reed is the chairman of the board, making the show happen for us. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll hope you'll subscribe. Hit that alert button, hit that bell, ring that bell. Every time we go live at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, you'll get the alerts there. Facebook, we hope you'll share the post, retweet on Twitter. And if you're listening on the podcast, we appreciate you. We hope you'll rate and subscribe and leave us a review while you're here. Crew is all here today. A lot to get to out of the gates. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning. It is a fine Tuesday, and Paul Kuharsky came in fired up and ready to go to open the show. Paul, by the way, first off, congrats on a really well-done piece.
Appreciate it.
At paulkuharsky.com. I enjoyed anytime we can get to something that has a different layer to it. I love reading that. I think that you had a piece that got to a different layer of what the expectation is for scouts in the National Football League.
So Rashad Weaver, charged with 1 count, simple assault. This was post-draft. This came out yesterday after the Titans draft, but it was an incident that took place 2 weeks prior to the draft taking place. 4th-round pick out of Pitt. And the question we posed yesterday is, what did the Titans know or didn't know? Their statement that was released after we went off the air yesterday made it clear they did not find out about anything to do with Rashad Weaver being involved in any altercation or anything legally until yesterday morning, which is a question that we were asking. Is that fair or unfair to expect where you draft a player and don't know something like this? Paul, you did some digging.
Well, there are other teams that did not know, for sure. But there are teams that knew. Yesterday when I initially wrote it, I had scouts from 2 teams. 1 knew, 1 didn't know. Now I know there are 3 teams of the teams that I've talked to and know about. 3 teams that knew, 2 teams that did not know. All right, but we know that the Tennessee Titans, a year removed from a huge fiasco with Isaiah Wilson in the first round, are held now to a higher standard that they can't miss on a draft pick, and they need to be hyper aware of red flags. And I think we all agree that they shouldn't be missing on something like this. The timing of it, awful, obviously. Look, the incident happened on April 18th. The woman filed her complaint on April 30th. The criminal complaint was filed on April 30th, but the summons wasn't issued until May 3rd, which is yesterday. So the timing of it, very complex for a team to learn about it. And you're not going to learn about it probably from the criminal justice system in Pittsburgh. Here's how you learn about it. Teams traditionally have methods for checking in with guys they think they're going to draft before the draft, in the days leading up to the draft. People are assigned people. A regional scout has people from certain schools, or the checkers, or everybody gets a batch of guys. And you call. Ideally, it's the guy who's been dealing with that prospect. Checking in on your phone numbers, buddy. Checking in on your agent. Checking in on your rehab of your injury. Have you suffered any new injuries? And then you go deeper. Have you been in any trouble? Now, maybe the Titans asked that question. I talked to a scout yesterday who's a very good scout, and who's been a source of mine for a while. Now, he knows how to ask the right prodding question, and got gets deeper with a guy. If you've been out drinking, anything going on, late night, and asks a layered question. Are the Titan scouts doing that? I'm
this
not
scout
saying
you spoke with did that with Weaver?
This scout I spoke with does that with guys.
Okay.
I know some things that I can't say
guys
out of
that his team is
conversations that I had.
targeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think you try to do it with everybody. I don't know if every team is doing it with 250 guys, right? We know ultimately your board might have 250 guys on it, but you know that you're probably taking 8 of these 50 guys. So I would think you're definitely doing it with those 50 guys, right? So Patrick Callaway is the Titans' Eastern scout. I presume he's the point person on Pitt, if Pitt qualifies in their scouting map as an Eastern school. Sometimes it might not, the way they draw a line. Sure. It could be, a Midwestern school. All right, so I don't want to talk out of school. I presume Patrick Callaway is their Eastern scout and that Pitt is an Eastern school. I've talked time and time again about the Titans having young scouts. I believe Patrick Callaway is 27 years old. I don't want to, pass judgment that a 27-year-old is not qualified to do that, but a 27-year-old probably doesn't have a lot of experience talking to Rashad Weaver, who, by the way, is 23 years old.
4 years older than Rashad Weaver, to put that into context.
So, is he able, some people might say, hey, a young guy can relate to a young guy and get that out of him. I would think Rashad Weaver has a way of, if he's in that conversation, of not necessarily revealing anything. Rashad Weaver clearly doesn't feel he did anything wrong. A charge hasn't been filed. You've got to ask the right questions there to get a revelation that something was up. And I will say, some of these teams, I believe, that knew something was up, didn't necessarily take him off their board or score him down. So the Titans got unlucky that they were the team that drafted him. I know two teams that were very interested in Rashad Weaver also did not know. So it could have been one of those two teams. So there's an element of unluckiness here. But I think we're talking locally in Nashville about a team that blew a big pick last year that now has a guy with a court date on October 5th if this thing isn't settled by then. It's bad news.
It's not the element of unlucky. I understand what you're saying. Timing-wise, not ideal. I don't think you can term it unlucky if the right questions weren't asked in that follow-up.
I'd agree with that.
If there was someone, and I know you didn't say this, but let's say hypothetically, there was someone that got that answer from Rashad Weaver where he was honest with them and said something was up and something happened, if that was the means by which a team figured out that there was an impending charge or something was going down, then I'm not going to just chalk this up as the Titans being unlucky, because it's the Titans not doing their due diligence and not asking the right question of the prospect. And I'll also say this, and I'll relate it to the University of Tennessee's football program, because I'm a Tennessee grad. I watched Tennessee football for over a decade have a lot of unlucky moments. Right? A lot of unlucky moments. And I keep saying, man, this is just the unluckiest program. This 5-star player comes in and he's just not a great guy. Or he doesn't contribute, or he doesn't work hard, or this happens late in the game, and that happens late in the game, and unlucky. But at some point I had to come to the realization that it's not just being unlucky. You've got a collection of people making bad decisions that lead to, quote, unlucky things happening. I'm not saying that John Robinson and the Titans front office is a group that's made a ton of bad decisions to where they're Tennessee football the last decade, for an example. But I will say this. I'm not going to sit here and chalk it up to being unlucky when this same regime just had the biggest first-round flop of all time.
I agree.
A year later, to be one of 32 teams. This has not happened anywhere else in the league. This is a national story because not one other NFL team had this happen. When the Titans were the first team to get popped with COVID-19 and have a game postponed, remember the NFL came in, the NFL media, kick him out of the damn league for the year. Don't let him play a game. And we kept saying, well, it's going to happen to someone else. It's going to happen to someone else. I don't know that this is going to happen to another team. The Titans are probably the lone NFL team that drafted a guy as he was being arrested and charged with punching a woman. That's a problem. To me, that's more than just being quote-unquote unlucky. And when you combine that with the Isaiah Wilson pick a year ago and what happened with him, Paul, I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt on this. Where I give them the benefit of the doubt is Derrick Henry, is the trade for Ryan Tannehill, is the win-loss record, which that can erase everything. But because of Isaiah Wilson, this puts them in a very bad spot. And the fact that someone else knew it, and I believe your report, others might not, and think that a scout's lying to you
into that
and trying to look better on it. But I believe your report. I believe other teams knew. I don't think it takes a CIA agent to find out what's going on, as some people have claimed to me on Twitter that, you're watching too many spy thrillers to think that the Titans would have any way of knowing this. No, there's ways to know, and other teams knew it. It's a big problem for the Titans.
Quickly, just on the ways to know, right? I don't think you're probably not finding this out through the police reports and stuff based on the timing. right?
Right.
Unless you have a police source in Pittsburgh, which is probably asking a lot.
And you
but you
have
have
the
a
timeline.
source connected to Weaver. You have Weaver himself. You have sources connected to Weaver. You have sources connected to Pitt. And those sources you have to be able to count on to A, tell you the truth, or to B, tip you off. And the Titans clearly didn't have that. I've got that timeline of the things that went down. She filed her complaint on the event happened April 18th. She filed her complaint on the 20th. The criminal complaint was filed on the 30th, the day before they drafted him. The summons was issued May 3rd. So those things are probably not helpful in terms of the Titans finding out. But a conversation with him should have been helpful. If you're checking in with people around him, I don't know if you're doing those check-ins. The fact of the matter is, you have to have a relationship with him and a conversation with him that would point you in a direction. And maybe people at Pitt should be telling you, hey, you
forgive
might
me
want to look into
for
something.
reading into this more if you guys think I am. So what on the timeline, what was April 30th?
April 30th was the criminal complaint was officially
That was
filed
Friday.
in the system.
That's when lawyers get involved, right?
Yes.
And it took until May 3rd for his lawyers to release a statement. You think that's because he wanted to get drafted?
Well, it's also a weekend, but yeah, sure.
You think that's
it's
because he wanted to get drafted?
Yeah.
If they find these allegations
Well,
completely false and reckless,
Right.
and they wait how many days to release a statement on this?
Well, you don't release a statement because it hasn't become public. You don't release a statement until it's out. So they're waiting for the Post-Gazette, and they're hoping the Post-Gazette people don't find out about it. You're not issuing a statement until you're responding to a question, right? So they're waiting for the media and hoping the media doesn't find out. So the thing that triggers this whole thing is the Post-Gazette having a story.
But if you are
Which was Monday
just,
morning.
find everything completely false and reckless, aren't you getting ahead of this story with teams that are calling to ask about this and just vehemently denying everything involved with this?
Well, I think you're waiting for the team to ask you about it because you're presuming
wanna
the
get
team doesn't
so
know
you're
about
hiding
it.
something.
You hope the teams
So
are
what is
dumb
this?
enough to not know.
And
Yeah.
draft.
And draft
and
you,
then
and
you'll
you're
explain
done.
it later.
Yeah.
Get drafted as high as you can.
Ask for forgiveness and
later.
not permission. You're not going to get out in front of it, and you're going to hope that there's a Tennessee Titans out there that doesn't know, and not the team out there, whoever Paul talked to, that did know. And that team that doesn't know is going to draft you, and you're going to be fine. Dustin on Twitter, and this is a comparison I'm seeing a lot, look no further than Joe Mixon in Cincinnati, which was much worse in my opinion because it was on tape. After 2 to 3 days of post-draft outcry, everyone moved on. Surely not a good look, but not the end of the world, and it will be a non-issue starting next week. The difference here is Cincinnati knew about it.
Right.
It was a pass deal that everyone had already seen everything on it. You knew what was up.
It was a draft day story.
The difference with this is more a story about the Titans'
Deficiencies
inadequacy
in scouting
than it is Rashad Weaver or them making. When they drafted Jeffrey Simmons, that was a post-draft outcry. ESPN immediately showed the footage that night. Remember, that was a big controversy of him punching the woman in high school. This was the Titans taking a calculated risk, believing in the player, believing in the person, and drafting them regardless of something that happened years in the past.
Assurances.
Cincinnati the same way. They took a chance on Joe Mixon. They knew they were going to take a black eye in the media for a while because of it, but they knew it. The issue here is the Titans, after not knowing Isaiah Wilson was a piece of trash as a football player and a worker, drafted a guy they didn't know that he just got arrested for punching a woman, allegedly. And all this mental gymnastics about, well, let's let it play out. This could have happened. This could happen. That's fine. I'm with you on that. Innocent until proven guilty, all of that. But let's really piece together this story. And even if you are completely on Rashad Weaver's side, with him telling a cop that he would hit a woman, with the altercation happening right before she was on the concrete, even when people say, well, there was no evidence of a punch, when you go back and read the report, well, that's because later it's found out she had a concussion from the back of her head striking the concrete because she was allegedly grabbed by the throat and thrown to the ground. Now, if one witness said, I saw him punch her, you can see how that would be confusing to say it's a punch or, a pie face,
You're
basically.
standing at one
to the
angle,
ground.
you see.
But I
see
try to
her
look
go
at all
down.
these situations of what if I was in that situation? What would I want my friends and family and everyone to believe? I'd want them to believe me if I didn't do it, and I would tell them that. But when you stack up all the evidence and all the accounts, and him telling a cop, again, before this happened, he told a cop that he would punch a woman.
If he found it.
If she needed it, quote, if she needed it.
Yeah, according to the report, said that to a group of officers.
Who came to deal with the first argument that resulted from her either spilling a drink on him or throwing a drink on him.
I'm not going to be emotional about this. I'm not going to play the, I have 2 daughters card and all of that.
You shouldn't have to.
Because, I'm trying to use logic in this. And my logic tells me something bad happened. Something is up. Maybe he didn't do exactly what was that he's being alleged to have done, but something bad happened that night when this girl ended up on the ground. And I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to look at the evidence and know that that's the case. And regardless, the fact that there is a criminal complaint and a summons being issued to a player that the Titans had no idea this was happening, it's really bad on the Titans.
These are judgment errors by him and a judgment error by them. And like we're saying, they're trending in the wrong direction on these things as a franchise, which is a problem.
Well, aside from him, whether or not he did this, the question I'm asking is, should the Titans have known that this was filed, that this was going on? Because other teams have told you, Paul, other scouts currently in the league, have told you, yes, they did in fact know about this with Rashad Weaver.
I don't know if they knew it was filed. They knew something happened.
So how
their security people were looking into it.
So
I say if one team knew, the Titans should know.
What is the expectation for a team that is trying to put the Isaiah Wilson saga behind them, combing through every inch of available information to make sure that they know about a player's current situation, past, present, future, everything? What's the expectation of an organization that's now trying to improve in that area after a massive failure?
Yeah, I say the expectation is
catastrophic failure in that job a year ago.
I say the expectation is better than this.
Here's the expectation.
Right? If somebody knows, you should know.
This is a very simple. This is a very simple expectation for me, especially after Isaiah Wilson. People want to separate the two. You can't. Because it was so bad a year ago, it's all combined now. You can't separate the two. Here's the expectation. If one NFL team knew, I want the team that actually drafts him to know. That's it.
I think that's entirely fair.
I don't care if it's one other team that did a great job and found out about this. I don't care if it's the Pittsburgh Steelers in his town that knew about this. I don't care who it is. If one team knew, if you're the team that drafted him, I expect you to know also. I don't expect you to be surprised by this. That is not too far to go for an expectation. And I'm willing to bet that John Robinson today, he's never going to say it, but deep down probably feels the same way. He's probably calling that scout in. He's probably checking the procedure and everything else. And he's thinking to himself, he's reading the Paul Kuharsky story and thinking, crap, if one team knew, I need to know. We need to know because we're the ones who drafted the kid.
Well, this is more than one team, though.
3 teams knew, 2 teams didn't.
Which makes it even worse, in my opinion.
5 teams that I know about. Also, let's not just say
5 teams that you know knew about.
5 teams that I know
spoke to. 3 knew.
3 knew, 2 didn't. Also, I mentioned Patrick Callaway, who's the Eastern scout, but it's not just him. Mike Boney, they have 2 scouts. One oversees the West, cross-checks. One oversees the East. So Mike Boney oversees the East. Then you have college scouting director John Salgi. You have vice president of player personnel Ryan Cowden. You have director of player personnel Monty Ossenfort. And then you have John Robinson, who oversees the whole thing. So what did I list there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys. I mean, it's a layered process on purpose with levels to cross-check and oversee so that it's not just one person.
Now, let's put ourselves in the situation after last year. And imagine being the scout that's putting your name behind a player. The stand on the table type guy. This is the player we need to address. And this is the pass rusher that's atop our board and all the pod and the horizontal boards for the 4th round and why there's great value here.
They probably go before they go to this guy and go, Patrick, we good with this guy?
Well,
you go to the scout of the region for a final, we're good?
You come in, in a typical year, you'd bring the scouts in a week before the draft and you have these discussions. And then as the draft leads up to actual time to select, you're reevaluating everything. Like you're saying, Paul, you're calling different sources from around the country to make sure you get this right. And so imagine being the group, because this is not just one individual decision. Imagine being the group of people that failed last year, that are a part of this, and then having to answer for the decision again, for not knowing. Again, it's not whether or not he did this, which we have mentioned yesterday is terrible. It's about not knowing that this is going on, and then having to be called on the carpet for it behind the scenes and say, hey, why didn't we know this? What are you doing all day Friday? We're on the clock Saturday. You're about to draft Rashad Weaver. What's going on Friday when all this came out? What's going on Saturday morning before we select him? I'm trying to put myself in that situation. How do you answer for that?
I don't know what. I mean, I think there are probably speechless people in the building yesterday during what had to be an awful and eerie and ugly day.
And so now to those who say, oh, one team, of course, there's going to be a team that says, oh, yeah, we knew about it. There's another team, oh, yeah, we knew about it. Paul, your reaction to those that question your sources on that say they're simply telling you that they knew to make themselves look better?
Well, first off, name names. I'm going to do this right here. Jason Martin, on my former radio show, I had the displeasure of tuning into you this morning. You had Kayla Anderson, TV person from Nashville, on this morning. And both of you, without naming me or citing my report, took the liberty of saying, yeah, these scouts probably, are making themselves look good by saying after the fact they knew about it. First of all, I'd like for you to tell me about all the scouts that you've talked to in your lives, because you're not NFL reporters. Your credentials are very weak in this area. So, stone up, first off. Secondly, I know these people for a long time, and I'm the best NFL reporter in Nashville. I'm a Hall of Fame voter, and I actually know people. So for you to question them and disparage them is ridiculous. I know you're all for the home team, go Titans, and you have to cover for them. J-Mart, I know it's pretty much in your contract. I know what goes on there because I used to work there. So you're pro Titans, and you have to cover their ass. More power to you. You're doing a great job. I heard it this morning for myself. But I talked to scouts. What incentive is there for an anonymous scout to lie? He's covering his ass without his name on it? Whoa, he did a heck of a job. Boy, his bosses are really proud of him today. They don't know who he is, but he did a great job. Think a little bit, bud. Think a little bit. I did enjoy the story about your first kiss with your wife that you came back with after I tweeted you when you didn't have the courage to respond. That's a great story. Very romantic.
Such a romantic tale. Tale as old as time.
Name a name.
Well, the insinuation that they're doing that to make themselves look better, and I didn't hear it this morning, is ludicrous because it's not making them look better if we don't know who they are.
Well, I'll give you the one possible note, and I don't buy this at all, because also, again, you had 3 different teams tell you this, right? I get into this sometimes with, I'll name names also. I think it's the Athlon Sports Preview magazine that has the anonymous coach's quote about other teams.
Yeah.
And some of the teams just get ripped to shreds. And I always see that and I think, oh, that's a rival team.
Recruiting ploy.
That's like, oh, this team's dumb on offense. We know exactly what they're doing defensively. And I'm thinking, boy, that's really harsh. But it's easy to say that when you're anonymous. The one possible motivation would be these are people that want to make the Titans look dumber than they already do. So I'm going to claim that I know even if I don't, even if it's anonymous, because that's going to make the Titans look dumber. But here's the difference, though, Paul. I believe you and your reporting, and you believe your sources, and I don't think it's that big of an advantage. This isn't a recruiting scenario, right? So it's not a huge advantage for them to say, I knew if they didn't, to try to make the Titans
People
look
I
dumb.
trust. People I trust.
It's just not the case. And here's the other thing. I think if you look at Rashad Weaver's body of work at Pitt, in his height and weight and everything else, I think there's a reason he's available there. I believe there's a chance that some of those teams that knew about it had a chance to draft Rashad Weaver at a need, and they didn't for that reason. Just like Caleb Farley is a top 10 talent that was there for the Titans at 22. Why? Because of 2 back surgeries. I believe there's a reason Rashad, because when he was drafted, I'm studying up on this kid, looking at what he did. He's an All-American. Mm-hmm. He gets the quarterback. He's got a quick burst. his 10-yard dash basically is one of the best in the draft. I'm like, why is he there in the 4th round? I'm willing to bet part of the reason is teams knew, even if the Titans didn't, that something was up.
I'll go on the other side of this, though. I'm virtually certain of 2 teams that liked him that didn't know, that I'm sure are probably breathing a sigh of relief that they wound up going a different direction. I don't know if they were before the Titans or after the Titans or what they wound up doing, that were calling around yesterday, checking with other scouts about whether they knew or didn't know, and probably breathing a sigh of relief that they didn't draft him or score him down because they were interested in him and they did not know. So they could have easily been the Titans themselves.
Let me ask from this perspective. Of the 3 who say they did know, are there any of the 3 who say we did know and it's not, we've checked it out, it's not that big of a deal?
I can't say.
Okay, so one way or the other, it could happen like that. And maybe the Titans, even though they clearly didn't know, they've admitted they didn't know in their statement yesterday.
Yeah, they said we were alerted this morning.
This morning. Alerted
when the news report came
alerted
out.
of this morning. Maybe they would have said the same thing. But again, the question I posed yesterday is it an issue that they didn't know?
Yeah, look, if they,
And for those that just write it off as, how are they supposed to know? If other teams say they were still out making calls and vetting prospects, and the Titans weren't doing the exact same question asking on the prospect they end up drafting, that's a red flag on the system that's in place. And we're judging that based on last year. That's fair based on the failure and the collapse of the 1st-round pick who's out making, his album for Apple Music right now.
Right. And
lines.
And if they knew and had looked into it and drafted him on Saturday, and then at the press conference, the Zoom press conference with John Robinson and Mike Vrabel, they say at the beginning or at the first question about Rashad Weaver, they say, hey, before I answer your question, he was involved in something on April 18th at a bar in Pittsburgh. There's probably going to be a police report that comes out about it, an incident report. We knew about this. We investigated this. We don't find it it didn't affect him on our draft board. We find there to be no cause, everything. And you quash it right up front, right? You're proactive with it, and you've taken control of the story, and everything is fine. Then it's a little bit of a story. We look into it, right? We have a conversation about it, but it changes the tenor of the whole thing.
Sure it does.
So we don't do a lot of poll questions on social media on this show. We're going to do one now. Simple question: should the Titans have known? And we're going to put the context in with it, and we'll ask that poll question.
And it starts 3
yes or no.
yeses right here.
Yep.
Yes, they should have known. If 3 other teams knew, the answer is yes. They should have known. Hit us up on Twitter at OutKick360. We hope you'll share the post on Facebook, and please do subscribe on YouTube. Retweet on Twitter as well. We are back with more on the NFL Draft in just a moment. OutKick 360 alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharsky. I'm Jonathan Hutton. FanDuel.com/OK360. That's the direct link to go get the best odds and some great new user odds. If you go sign up for FanDuel, FanDuel.com/OK360, you can bet up to $1,000 and get that risk free. You get up to $1,000 in site credit back if you lose your first bet as a new user at FanDuel. FanDuel.com/OK360. Paul, you received response from the league while we're talking Rashad Weaver, that they are looking into this.
They look into everything, and this qualifies as one of those things. So Titans drafted a player that they need to look into and that the league is looking into. He's got an October 5th court date, so if things aren't settled, it's conceivable that, if the league judges it to be serious enough, he could be, exempt up until that time in a worst case scenario. I don't know if they wind up in a worst case scenario, depending on what the league uncovered.
The national story, it continues to be Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. First, let me pose this question first, because there is we talk about cyclical news information and the way things are. So now we're into possible trade offers for Aaron Rodgers. Is it imperative? Are the Green Bay Packers obligated to get something in return for Aaron Rodgers if he says I'm not playing in 2021 for the Green Bay Packers? Are they obligated to get something in return, or do they call his bluff and they say, okay, retire?
That's a difficult question.
Well, they get money back if he retires. They get a prorated chunk of
this is going to lead to my second question that no one's really, I haven't heard anyone mention, but so everyone is discussing what Green Bay would get in return. And along with 2 first-round picks, they're throwing in there's a Russell Wilson swap with Seattle. There is a trade with the Raiders where Derek Carr comes in return. There is a trade with Denver where you get one of their quarterbacks. And I'm thinking, why did they draft Jordan Love? Why is no one mentioning that they have a future franchise quarterback that they invested a first-round pick in? This is why we're here. It's because the Green Bay Packers and their front office and Matt LaFleur drafted their future franchise quarterback. So for all of this, you could swap Rodgers for Russell Wilson, the 2 disgruntled quarterbacks. Why does that make sense to the national outlets right now?
I think it only makes sense because they're not thinking deeply enough about it. Not only
That's surface level,
not only did they draft Jordan Love, they traded up to draft Jordan Love. And that's where this started. I find it interesting to see how public discourse has shifted with Aaron Rodgers, even with Packers fans. Packers fans, if you did a poll a year ago after the draft and asked who they side with, the organization for drafting Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers for being upset, 98% would have sided with Aaron Rodgers, right? Would have taken sides against the team with that decision and sided with their quarterback for being upset. It's probably more like 40% to 50% backing Aaron Rodgers now, if I had to guess, with the Packers, with the fan base, I'm saying. And then nationally, Paul, you were one who's always been an Aaron Rodgers fan and supporter, and now even you were saying that this has broken me with Aaron Rodgers.
I just want to hear him come out and say it. Stop with everything being behind the scenes. If it's down to 5%, as our buddy Rob Domofsky says, one of my favorite NFL reporters,
and who knows Aaron Rodgers well.
Yeah, come out and say it.
Sure.
The guy's always kind of a cryptic mystery, and that has always been an acceptable part of him in exchange for the play. But now if he's starting not to play, I'm less accepting of the cryptic mystery Aaron Rodgers, right?
I don't understand why the immediate jump to get a quarterback in return on top of draft picks when they have the reason Aaron Rodgers is disgruntled. A big reason why is because they drafted Love.
Yeah, they're going with Love next.
Load up on draft picks. Yes. Like make a deal for Aaron Rodgers. To answer your question, Hutton, I've thought about it. Going back to it, yes, it's imperative for them to trade and get something in return for Aaron Rodgers, because I don't believe he's going to come back and play for the Packers. So trade
Well,
him
but
away.
my question,
get
though, is-
draft picks. It's the standoff game.
Do you
the
call
rest
this
of the
bluff
league
and
is waiting?
say, if we can't have you, no one can. We have the rights to your deal. Retire.
I think you get what you can. I think you find a team that's desperate enough, that's thirsty enough for Aaron Rodgers, and there are teams out there that's thirsty for Aaron Rodgers.
Plenty.
Go ahead and make a deal with that team, even if it's not the full bank that you would want for Aaron Rodgers, because there's other teams probably sitting around with that face-off saying, well, you're going to have to cut him or he's going to retire because he's not going to re-sign there, so you're going to have to do something with him, so I'm not going to give you everything to get Aaron Rodgers. Someone's going to give something.
You should be able to
So
get,
you should get something
be able
in
to get
return.
what San Francisco gave to go up to 3.
But see, it's different because those teams can look at them and say, you got to cut him. He's not going to play for you.
We don't have to
we
cut
know
him. They
you're
could
going to
just
cut
put him on the retired
Again,
list.
they just say retire.
Then what, he has to sit out a year and then come back? How does that work
I
if he
think he's
retires?
got to negotiate his way off of that list at some point. Favre had to negotiate his way off of that list.
I don't think it's that
And
difficult to
then to be
negotiate your way
traded.
off that list if that were the case.
So the insinuation is when they drafted Jordan Love that 2022 was going to be the separation
Last
year.
2 years.
And Rodgers
Or 3
is
years.
trying to dictate the timetable of this by a year sooner
more.
than a year later with this. After winning MVP.
The other way around. A year later than a year
Right,
sooner.
excuse me, yes, the other way around. He's saying, you know what? You're a year from now, you're going to be done with me based on the lack of big time extension that I wanted in December and January. So let's just go ahead and part ways now. And according to reports from Trey Wingo last week, says that the Green Bay Packers, in fact, did tell him they were going to trade him this offseason. And then came forward with an extension that he didn't like, and now we're here. So if you're Green Bay, what do you do? Is it repairable? That's the next thing. Is this repairable after him knowing that a year from now we're right back where we are, except it's likely Green Bay will be done with him?
I would take a stock of how good is this GM if I were Green Bay, because it's an easy solution. Get your guy to resign or fire him, and then Aaron Rodgers will be happy and he'll be back in Green Bay. And I know that's a big risk with the precedent you're setting, but if you really believe in this GM and you know that he's done everything right, or you think he has, and he's doing everything he can to bring Aaron Rodgers back, and Aaron Rodgers being unreasonable, then you either trade him or let him walk. But if you really want Aaron Rodgers back and you're not a full believer in the GM, get him out.
So,
Because that's one way to guarantee that Aaron Rodgers is back with you and you can make a run at a Super Bowl title this year.
Gutekunst, the general manager, the report was from Charles Robinson of Yahoo, who's excellent. And he did, in the report, he did not say that Aaron Rodgers is demanding that he resign or be fired. The report stated, and I'm going to paraphrase it, it was that Rodgers doesn't believe that their relationship can continue on the path it's on. And so I believe that Charles Robinson would have directly said that Rodgers wants him out,
Right.
if in fact that's what he wants done.
But he's saying that's the irreparable relationship.
Yes. And that LaFleur
not
is
the team,
the
the-
bystander here. He's just kind of going, he's standing in front of a podium acting like he's not even
Well,
contemplating
this guy
because he's in love.
This guy hired LaFleur, right? He was part.
Yes.
Gutekunst was in place,
Yes.
so he was part of the triumvirate that hired, or the duo that hired Matt LaFleur. So he's got to defer to some degree to his boss.
Well, I mean,
Well-
step one is somehow getting in front of Aaron Rodgers.
Correct.
If you're Gutekunst and talking with him and laying it all on the table. And falling on the
They've
sword.
gotta have a meeting.
He needs to fall on the sword and say, I screwed up. I should have told
Well,
you.
he has said
we
that.
should have talked
Needs to
about
do
it.
again.
He said that Thursday.
They went to-
Has he
and they
said
went
that to Aaron
California.
Rodgers, though?
We
I
don't-
know he
he-
said it publicly.
Aaron Rodgers doesn't pick up the phone for his family. I don't know if he's picking up the phone for the general manager.
I'm with you, but my point is that's step one, is that they've got to somehow get in front of Aaron Rodgers. I don't care if it's ambushing him in California when he's hanging out with Shailene Woodley. Find a way to get in front of him. Go to her next movie set or television show set and find Aaron Rodgers and sit down and talk
hang
with
on.
him and apologize to him face to face and see if that helps.
See, what's even crazier about that scenario would be the Green Bay Packers finding Shailene Woodley before the paparazzi came.
Yeah,
They've never been photographed together.
She's very reclusive.
And they're engaged.
Here's the key player in this whole thing.
Don't put the Titans on it, because I'll tell you that much. I'll tell you who would not find out where Aaron Rodgers, Shailene Woodley are. The Tennessee Titans, that's for sure.
Here's the key player in this. David Dunn, Aaron Rodgers' agent. He's the broker in this, right? He's got to be the guy that has the come to Jesus meeting first with Rodgers. Say, look, maybe out isn't the best solution here. Maybe forcing that. Before we go forward with this, let's sit down with the Packers. They'll come to you. You know, I'll order croissants. We'll have a meeting, right? What
Could even be in Paris.
what kind of coffee do you want? You know, let's spend the morning with them, and sit down and try one time to have a meeting. Meditate, take a breather, do some yoga that morning, and let's go in calm. And they'll come in calm, and we'll talk. Right?
This is the most calm
I know
you've
it's
ever been,
funny.
Paul.
It's funny, but this is what you need to do
Yes.
to start. And then after that, we'll see how we feel.
Well, and the start has to be swallowing whatever pride and ego you have. If you're Gutenkist and saying, I really hate saying that name, but I'll say it anyways.
Yeah, we're doing well.
I'm trying to avoid
I was
saying
nailing
it 'cause
Jeremiah Owasu
It's not even.
Koromasu.
I know how to pronounce it. I hate saying it. It's one of those names.
Koromoa.
Gutenkist. But anyways, you go in there and you say, I'm completely in the wrong. You are our franchise
How
as
do
a
we
player.
fix this?
We need to fix it. I want to consult you on things to do. I'm not going to give you overall say on who exactly we draft.
But let's
I don't
go win
think
a
you
Super
want
Bowl.
that. You can tell Aaron Rodgers that, but we should consult you more on these things and appease him the time that you have him there in any way that you can. And then if that relationship works out well, maybe at the end, the agent turns and says, now, Aaron, I want you to look over at this door also. Here are your parents. Up next, your parents are here. Now let's repair that relationship too, and you can talk to your family.
Before the parents' story, you go, I've got Amari Rodgers out in the backyard. Do you want to throw to him for a little bit?
Yeah.
See,
why don't you guys play? Hey, Dad, can we play catch?
You know, we're going through
Play
timelines.
catch?
We're going through timelines of Weaver. I think we're doing a disservice not to mention the timeline of this. The timeline didn't start Thursday when this report came out.
No.
This has been going on for a long time. And so if the Packers haven't already done this, it's too late. And that's what my point was yesterday when I said they're going through the breakup phase of denial, because it's now public knowledge and they're denying the fact that the breakup's going to happen.
But deadlines prompt action, Hut, and there's no deadline here. The draft was kind of a deadline. Nothing happened. So what's the next deadline?
To Chad's point, the
there's no
only way they're
deadline
getting
there.
in front of him is behind a microphone at a podium on a Zoom call. They're not getting in front of him to chat about this.
Well, I think David Dunn ultimately can make it happen, and I don't think anything will happen before there is a meeting like this. What's the ticking clock on that? Start a camp, maybe.
And there's one other area of this, just to go a layer deeper, that Green Bay lacks.
Yeah,
Paul will tell you about that coming up on OutKick 360. One of the many things in the OutKick 360 background here at Blackbird Studio is a tribute to Sergeant First Class Nick Moses, who served in the 5th Special Forces Group out of Fort Campbell. He had been deployed 3 previous times to Iraq and was a member of Operation Enduring Freedom, headed for his 4th deployment in Afghanistan, and as he was starting his 4th deployment, was killed on March the 15th, 2012. We started the show March 15th, 2021, and friends of Nick's asked us to display Nick is Here each day during the show. We do this proudly. This is a tribute to Nick Moses and to everyone who has served, will serve, or is currently serving in the United States Special Forces, the Army, the Marine, the Navy, Air Force, wherever you may be, thank you deeply from all of us. We truly appreciate all you're doing for our country. OutKick 360 across the OutKick network alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharsky. I'm Jonathan Hutton, Lance Lee, Jacob Swanson, David Reed making the show happen for us, Becca Risley, Sleepy Danny, and the cast and crew at OutKick. Appreciate all the great work that they're doing.
May I also give a quick shout out to Jacob Swanson and an assist from Lance Lee on the break music that you're hearing and the lead-up music. This is an original OutKick 360 band. It's not Dad's Acid. We're still coming up with a band name, but this is an original composition of the NBA Jam theme. People were guessing Mario Brothers, that it sounded like a souped-up Mario Brothers mix.
No,
it is, in fact, the theme from NBA Jam that Jacob Swanson, Lance Lee came up with, and that's what's playing during our breaks, and you heard it during the lead-up to the show. Paul, your thoughts on this?
This
funky little ditty,
that they are doing this is spectacular, and what I want is for them to be given a few days off so they can just go in the studio and rattle off like a quadruple album's worth of tunes for these breaks.
Well, I mean, we need to get these guys. Did they turn their light on today? No, they did not.
No light.
Will you speak out of the darkness?
These men prefer darkness in all avenues of their life. The very
Come out of
dark,
the shadows
dark
and
beings.
speak. I would love for them to get some big time studio time.
Well, let's
here at
hear about
Blackbird
the
Studio.
recording session.
We're at a state of the art, world renowned studio right here in Nashville, Tennessee.
And Jacob recorded this instead in his closet.
No, they did it right here.
Right here.
They did it right
Yeah.
here in the studio.
How did it go? Give us a little insight into the recording session.
Went pretty smoothly. Plugged my little amp into this computer and used GarageBand. So
You slapped the bass at all on that?
This is the most boring VH1 behind the music I've ever seen. It's Jacob
You're
explaining.
going to have to start lying
Jacob,
more.
if you would, describe GarageBand for the people out there in full detail.
It was not typical Jacob Swanson mentality here. Whenever he makes music, it's normally like 2:00 in the morning, and
Dad's Acid
he's
is
diving off of
Psychedelics are involved.
He's diving off of stages.
or trying to break into Paul's house.
I think maybe we've got a name for the band. Sober Music.
Sober
Oh,
music.
yes.
Oh, and he also made the great logo for us,
The
too.
Sobarians.
I think, dude, if you could come up with a new logo every week like that, that would
OutKick
really draw
360
people in.
The OutKick 360 NBA Jams logo,
The
fantastic.
hardwood. Yeah.
Where the Packers maybe lack a bit in the negotiation or the fence mending, so to speak, between the organization and Aaron Rodgers. Paul.
Yeah, and I have to say Mike Florio pointed this out, and I thought it was a good post by a guy that I don't necessarily love. But but he raises good points periodically. The Packers are beloved in large part, and they're a very unique franchise because they are a publicly owned company, right? As the shareholders. So they don't have an owner. And this is the reason that we know a lot about NFL finances and things like that, because they have to share information that most teams, privately owned, don't have to share. But here's a situation where a team with an owner would probably make a decision. An owner would say, get everybody in a room. Do it no matter what to the GM. Or would say to Gutekunst, you got to fix this or you are in deep doo-doo. Or say, screw Aaron Rodgers. We drafted Jordan Love to be in this position, or whatever. Mark Murphy's just the CEO, and he answers to a board of 40 people, and those 40 people actually answer to the shareholders who have a once-a-year meeting. There's no singular authority with the Packers to lay down the law the way that Jerry Jones or Stan Kroenke or whoever, owners good and bad around the league, could lay down the law on something like this and offer a single-minded solution after taking in, ideally, the advice of his or her football people. And so in this situation, it's actually not a good thing for the Packers to not have that singular decision-making voice at the top, because it's more hazy.
It's the beauty of the Packers, but also, you're right.
Most of the time, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Here's a situation where it's not.
And just a random stat about quarterbacks. No Green Bay quarterback has made it to their 17th season
That was
with Green Bay. Starr and Favre both made it 16.
and now Aaron Rodgers, 16. Exactly 16 years.
Isn't that crazy?
That is really crazy.
Good time for a breakup, I guess.
I guess so. Any team that you're buying other than Denver that would be involved right now?
I think Minnesota should be involved. I don't know. I haven't heard that anywhere.
What
What's
about
the one
Miami?
other?
Miami, who has a boatload of future picks.
And they've certainly set up a good infrastructure. When
I say other teams that would love all but 31 other teams should at least 30 other teams. You've got Brady in Tampa should be like, yeah, we'd love to have Aaron Rodgers here. But I'm saying realistic trade availability.
Vegas is the other one, because Gruden is always quarterback hungry. Carr may be a guy, kind of like the same reason I'm saying Minnesota. Minnesota's gone as far as Minnesota's going to go with Cousins.
See, if
they're going to be drafting in the middle of the draft.
But that's where I say, are they obligated to get something? Because if Green Bay and it's Minnesota, you just say, yeah, retire. We're retaining your rights.
I know what you're going to say.
Vikings.
Every team's better with him.
Well, no, it's
but
not
a lot
that.
of teams have
but
plans
you can.
in
My
well
point
in
is,
motion.
we can give a list of the teams not interested in Aaron Rodgers before that's smaller than the teams interested.
No, but I'm saying
you can go through the pecking order of who's the least interested. But I mean, there's a lot of teams that even have a quarterback you wouldn't be automatically thinking about them bumping aside for Aaron Rodgers.
But a lot of teams are well in motion with their plan and can't afford to give up a ton for Aaron Rodgers or pay Aaron Rodgers. You have to factor that in as well. So they can't blow things up. The Raiders would blow things up. They're willy-nilly, right? They just don't care. Miami, I think, would be a smart thing, because for a long time you heard about them looking at alternatives to Tua, and then all of a sudden they were like fully bought in. But he's not, it doesn't strike me as being that good. They're just building a great thing around him. You throw Rodgers into that, and then you're, otherworldly.
I mean, the team that was perfect was San Francisco.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen for whatever reason, even after the reports that they were talking trade.
Then
at one point, and the 49ers ended up trading up to get
Shanahan, who called LaFleur to ask about it, and he said, don't even bother offering.
It'd be perfect for him, too. He would probably love to go there.
It's a good team.
Yeah.
He's from Northern California.
Good defense.
Right?
I mean, because immediately what comes to mind, the teams that's a great quarterback away from competing for a Super Bowl.
Right now.
OutKick 360 is back. It's the Tennessee Power Hour alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharsky. I'm Jonathan Hutton, Lance Lee, Jacob Swanson, David Reed making the show happen for us. Talking Titans to begin the Tennessee Power Hour. We're going to get to the Preds and the latest on the Tennessee Volunteers as well. If you're watching on YouTube, we hope you'll subscribe to the page, retweet on Twitter, and share the link on Facebook wherever you may be watching today. If you're listening on the podcast, we hope you'll subscribe, leave us a review, and a rating as well. We appreciate you for doing that. Guys, we sent out the poll. Should the Titans have been aware of Rashad Weaver's incident in Pittsburgh prior to the draft, where Paul reported yesterday and reiterated this morning on the show? If you missed the first hour, go back and watch that. That 3 teams of the 5 he contacted admit that they did know that Weaver had this going on prior to draft day on day 3. So if they knew, should the Titans have known before selecting him in the 4th round? You can vote on OutKick 360's Twitter page right now, where, Chad, do you have the latest update?
We're up over 600 votes. 84% yes, the Titans should have known. 16% no, they should not have known.
It's 100% unanimous here for us. Yes, they should have known. If 3 other teams knew, the percentages would go up as you poll other scouts around the league. If 3 of the 5 that Paul contacted would know, and his attorney came out and denied all allegations and said they can't wait for further legal recourse with all of this. But also they were sitting around waiting on the media to find this out before they did anything to get out in front of this news. And that led to Rashad Weaver being drafted on Saturday, quite frankly.
And look, it'd be great for the Titans. It'd be great for Rashad Weaver if it turns out that the determination's made that he is innocent of what he's charged with here. The bell has still been rung, however, that in official documentation of this, he said, well, it was paraphrasing, I wouldn't hesitate to hit a woman if she needed it, or something along those lines. That's a bad bell to ring that's going to echo, and that he's going to answer for, be asked about repeatedly. John Robinson's going to be asked about it, Mike Vrabel's going to be asked about it, and Rashad Weaver's going to be asked about it. And even if this case goes away legally, that's on the record. And that's going to linger.
Well, and it's so many people are, and you can interact with us on Twitter, and we hope that you do, at OutKick 360. Hit us up on Facebook also, wherever you can find us on social media. That's how we'll interact with you during the show.
And we won't block you for disagreeing with us on
this. Some institutions will block you. We will not. Say whatever the heck you want. We're big boys. One of these ideas that people have about all of this is, and we've heard it earlier with Joe Mixon, you take this chance, and it's going to be done in a month, and if the guys out there playing well, no one's going to care about this issue later on, right? The difference with that is the difference between taking a calculated risk on someone with a very visible incident, that's awful, which that is what this appears to be with Rashad Weaver, and being blindsided and fooled and taking a guy that you later find out has an incident. That's what has happened here. That's completely different. This would be the same as, I'm an athletic director at a college. I decide to hire Rick Pitino away from Iona to lead my program, knowing everything that happened at Louisville, knowing everything in the NCAA past, knowing I'm going to get hit by the media for doing so, but knowing he's a great coach, he's going to win, and I'm willing to take that chance, as opposed to hiring Rick Pitino as the news at Louisville breaks, right? And then taking that burden on. The Trey Smith draft, and we talked about, you draft Trey Smith, he falls because you're taking the medical burden on of what the medical staff at Tennessee had to do to keep him eligible and keep him healthy to play. So you're taking that on. There's a big difference. I want to separate the difference between drafting Jeffrey Simmons, knowing the past, drafting Joe Mixon, knowing the past, and how you're going to get hit, and not knowing it all when other teams knew. Huge difference. Huge difference between those.
And then you have questions like, was he honest with you? Did you ask him did you ask him any questions? Did you ask him something close to the right question? Was he evasive? I'd be very curious to know if and when the Titans made that pre-draft call to him, if you touch on the right topic, hey, you had anything going on lately? Did he offer you enough? And then, is it on your scout that he didn't follow up sufficiently in that conversation to get enough to know that there was something to look into? That could be on the scout. Or did your scout ask those questions and was he not forthcoming enough? You've got questions potentially on both sides of that.
And see, my question now, and for those who say, let the legal process play out, of course we will. But it's still fair to ask the question, why didn't the Titans know when other teams knew? Because they didn't know last year about Isaiah Wilson, clearly, and they didn't know this year, which they admitted in their statement. So if we're being open and honest with what we're thinking behind the scenes as an organization, I would be putting myself in that situation going, okay, how do we change this up to where we don't make this 3 for 3 in 2022? Because this is unacceptable. If other organizations have something that they're doing right that we're not figuring out in the scouting process and the vetting process of players.
You want me to set Chad off here?
Yes.
It'll set you off too, but it'll set you off too, but it'll really set Chad off.
Oh, offensive tackle. Here we go.
I'm nervous.
So one of the scouts I spoke with yesterday.
Here we go. About Isaiah Wilson.
One of the scouts.
No, Paul, don't.
2 against 1. We always go.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
We always go majority.
Go.
I vote yes.
Go
I
ahead.
vote
Go.
yes.
Yeah, go.
One of the scouts I spoke with yesterday, I said, this really kind of compounds things for the Titans on top of the Isaiah Wilson thing last year. And he said, boy, that guy gave me bad vibes last year. He said, he was just so weird. This was pre-draft, of course.
Do you have any info on who that Southeast scout is for the Titans? You have the Northeast scout. I'd like to know the name of the Southeast scout, if that's the case.
Well, the word weird doesn't bother me, though.
Well, the Titans didn't find him weird.
Lazy. Well, you can be weird and be an elite athlete.
But the way he said,
Aaron Rodgers is weird.
I understand, but the way he said weird was the weird that was like, I don't want to be around.
Lazy and fat are two descriptions that I wouldn't draft.
But the way he said weird, Hutton, was the kind of weird I don't
something's
want
off.
that guy.
I got you.
It says that something's off. Not someone.
Not like he's into
eccentric.
Pokemon. Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is eccentric, right? Yeah. He's, I love Aaron Rodgers' arm, but
take him off the board.
He's really into Star Wars, and I found that weird. I think that's more eccentric.
Not that kind of
into Pokemon. He's off the board.
Yeah. Get him out. Much like if you opted out of last year. If you're into Pokemon, get the hell out. GTFO. You're off the board at that point. No, that is disturbing, Paul, and I know what you're saying. It's more of the vibe you got and the vibe he got was something's off.
Yes.
There's something not right about this prospect, and I'm not going to touch it.
And we know who did not have that feeling.
Chad, your thoughts?
Disgusted by that. And, I mean, I just keep going back to, guys, and we'll go back to Isaiah Wilson, then tie the knot with Rashad Weaver. All of these things can't happen and something not be terribly wrong with the prospect. And you are doing I want to cuss right here, but I won't, a terrible job at that point of not finding that, because all of these things can't happen. I get it if you get unlucky and a guy never had any problem, never had any issue with coaching, never had any issue with teammates, and he makes a horrific mistake when he gets to your team. But then he spends the rest of the time trying to make up for that mistake and rejoin the team and do what's right by the coaches and the team. That's one thing you can then claim, we did a thorough job vetting this guy, and he made a huge mistake. He owns it. We're going to try to move forward with him. This is a line of mistakes like we've never seen that led to the guy being out of the league, and a guy who clearly didn't even want to play football. That's more than just we got a good report from Sam Pittman, his offensive line coach, and we can't believe this happened. I mean, there's something else going on. And I'll say this to John Robinson and Mike Vrabel, who I think are both very smart guys and overall very competent at their vocation. I think Mike Vrabel's a good NFL head coach. He's a good football coach. He's a smart dude. I think John Robinson's a good NFL GM, smart dude. I like both of them. in my interaction with them. Now is not the time to be a smartass. Now is not the time to show everyone in the room how good you are at your job and talk about how your process is this or your process is that. If you were John Robinson, now is the time when you meet with the media to say, we need to reevaluate everything because this can't happen. Regardless if it's unlucky or whatever it is, this can't happen again. We're going to work with the authorities. We're going to work with Rashad Weaver. We're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to figure that out, and that'll all play itself out. But we can't have this happen again. I don't want another Zoom press conference where it's them talking circles around the media trying to prove that they're more clever than everyone in that Zoom chat. Show some accountability. Now's the time to step up and say, we do need to reevaluate some things about how we scout and what we're looking into because that's something we got to catch.
Well, he's good.
Regardless of the timing and everything else. Look, timing, bad luck, all of that, whatever. Regardless of it, Paul, you have the report. At least 3 teams knew of the 5 you talked to. If you talk to the whole league, if you want to bear that out and show a ratio, that's 3-2 across the league that knew. You were in the minority that did not know. And you drafted the guy. So however you got to that point, figure out a way to make it better.
It's actually 3-3 because we know the Titans didn't know.
Look, I'll be the first. I've been very critical of this whole thing
50%,
from the beginning. But I'll be the first to raise my hand and say, good job. Stand up there and say, we need to reevaluate. We need to look at our scouts, reevaluate that situation. We need to look at our process and our evaluations and figure out our security department, all of it. I'm not saying go in there with a machete and start firing everyone. I'm saying put everything on the table and say, how can we make this better? I want him to say that.
Here's what I think will happen as opposed to what should happen. He's very good at my bad, right? Said it with Vic Beasley, said it with Kevin Dodd, right? My mistake, got to do better, all of those things. I think if this comes to
Isaiah Wilson too,
like that, right? I think he'll say that if it needs to be said. But in terms of fixing stuff, they don't say it on the front end. They do it and show you. So this defense was very bad. They never came out and said, boy, we can't rush the passer, or boy, secondary really needs to be revamped. But they've shown us they believe that by changing it. And so if we see transactions in the scouting department or changes on the website and who's in the security department or whatever, then we'll know, Chad, that they think along the lines. But he's not going to come out and say those things. I doubt it very seriously.
I don't know what's wrong with some transparency. I don't know what's wrong with
There's
saying
some
it
ego. There's a little bit of ego involved there.
But so we're going to have to go to the directory to see that they have accountability, to find out who they fired and who they didn't?
Probably.
I mean, honestly, my ego.
I'm being honest.
Screenshot that directory now.
I don't get, we all have an ego or we wouldn't be in this business, right? I mean, us included.
Right.
Everyone that's in front of a camera or does a job with any type of leadership
Profile.
probably has some sort of ego. But to me, your ego should tell you that you should stand in front of a camera and a microphone and say, I think of myself as one of the best GMs in this league, and I've got to be better. And we're going to look at everything and find out how to not make this happen again. And it falls on me first and foremost. I'm not blaming anyone else. We got to figure it out. Unfortunate timing, but we got to figure out how to make it better. I don't think that's unreasonable, and I would not look at John Robinson any worse. I'd look at him much better if he did that. Or if any coach or GM or athletic director or owner said that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not hurting your ego or putting a dent in it. You know what to me hurts your reputation and the public's perception of you? If you make excuses or belittle people asking legitimate questions. That's what makes your reputation suffer across the league.
Here's the comparison I'm going to draw. I was upset, and I think a lot of people were in my camp with what Mike Vrabel didn't do with the defensive staff after this season, right? And I wrote harshly, it's got to be some new blood here. And all you did when you announced the staff was you added a guy from Vanderbilt as the assistant defensive line coach. And otherwise, it's all the same. And there's kind of a feeling here that I alone can fix it, which we've heard in a bigger scope before. And I just thought it's such a bad look that you don't feel like you need an outside voice look, you're the boss, and we know it. You're a good coach, and we know it. But there were some serious problems here, and how can you not conclude that an outside set of eyeballs with different perspective could come in and be of assistance to you and help to this staff? And ultimately wound up with Jim Schwartz, who's just the kind of person I'm thinking of, right? Slight connection in that they both have relationships with Belichick, but Schwartz is his way back at the very beginning of his career, little stamp of approval from your guy, that's fine. But you're not from the same tree. You're different. And so I look now at Robinson along that. And I've said this all along. You guys know I've said he's got all these young scouts that are just kind of like, these are minions, kind of, right? I don't picture these guys standing on the table and going against John. I picture these guys are doing what John's trained them to do, which is one way to do it, right? But I've also said that's why they're not really producing 6th and 7th round guys that have a shot, because that's when scouts get their guys, right? And these scouts are very inexperienced for the most part. And so if the regional scout, Patrick Callaway, was the foundational scout for Rashad Weaver and the check-in scout for Rashad Weaver, is 27 years old, 27. 3 years older than Rashad Weaver himself. I don't want to be bashing Patrick Callaway. I don't know him. That's kind of the point. You don't know a guy who's 27, You need some old hats in there.
I don't go to the 27-year-old as much as I go. I mean, they have a director of college scouting.
Right.
They have a vice president of player personnel. They have a director of player personnel.
Sure.
And they have a general manager.
Sure. But the point person with these guys, the real face-to-face contact, if you will, outside of COVID, the guy who's on the campus the most, all of that, is the Patrick Callaway level guy. And so to me,
he's the guy who would have that last phone call to ask about any changes.
Probably. And so I'm saying the way that Vrabel came around to add somebody like Schwartz, I think that thinking is what I'd like to see from Robinson, where it mix up the staff a little bit.
They can get defensive and prickly and, how dare you ask these questions. Behind the scenes, I think we know them well enough. They have to be asking these same questions that we're asking.
They just
How does this happen again, where we don't know and other teams know?
So don't be pissed at us.
How does it happen?
If you're asking the same questions yourself, you can't be pissed at us asking them. Well, it makes you look bad, we understand, but, you look bad.
It's just perfectly reasonable to just fall on the sword and say, we're asking ourselves the same question, and we're looking into it. We got to figure this out, because bottom line is, maybe unlucky, but we're the 1 out of 32 teams that drafted a guy who had an arrest for hitting a woman that came out after the fact.
Allegedly.
So we have to reevaluate. Well, not allegedly. He's been charged with hitting a woman.
He's not allegedly charged. He was charged.
Allegedly hit the woman, but he was charged for it.
Yeah,
so we have to figure out why that is. Brian on Twitter asked this question, one I've seen a lot also, Paul. Someone may have asked this already, but at what point is it on the NFL to obligate that all teams who discover such crucial brand-impacting intel immediately share with the league, and the league can disseminate to all clubs?
Yeah, I think, I was asked this yesterday, and my initial reaction is, if I out-scout you, I got to have an advantage for out-scouting
I don't
you.
want that to happen. I love the idea that other teams can do their own research their own way, and it can create an advantage that way.
There's also leaks of information and false
team
reports.
To team and false reports.
That just get caught in the minutia of the draft season.
If it happens earlier, it does get out. I mean, the media plays a role in this, right?
Sure.
He's a star at Pitt. If this had happened a little bit earlier, if it had been filed in the Pittsburgh magisterial court as it was, and if it had been filed on Thursday instead of on Monday, this reporter in Pittsburgh would have had it, and it would have been out, and the league would have known about it. And that's not the league disseminating it. It's not a team that finds it taking to the league to disseminate it. It's the press.
Let me give you a for instance. If he played at Tennessee and this happened in Knoxville, it would have been out with the media there, because there's a lot more media outlets covering that team, and there would have been noise about the incident.
Or a cop involved in it, or somebody, the bartender.
Even before it leaked in terms of the actual public summons, there would have been talk about message boards,
somebody in the
reporter
bar,
somewhere. They would have been tipped off about, hey, the All-American was involved in something at a bar last night. We all saw it. this happened. In a city like Pittsburgh, you can be anonymous if you're a Pitt Panther. Right, there's big pro sports teams there. You can kind of fall into it, and you don't go out and everyone knows who you are.
A Vanderbilt guy can probably be anonymous in Nashville.
A USC
college
player.
town is a different thing.
In LA, a USC player can get lost in the sea of celebrities in LA. If you're in Knoxville, Tennessee, and you're an All-American and you're out at a bar and cops show up because a woman threw a drink on you, there's going to be people tipping off reporters about it. Those reporters are going to look into it. The Titans would have gotten the benefit of that because that story would have been out there
This
first.
is college town versus city.
Well, and there's some places, and I'll give you the example that I always bring up. I think Athens, Georgia media protects the team. I think there's things that happen with Isaiah Wilson from people I know that were brushed under the rug, and that involved police in Athens, Georgia. I think that they handle things through Kirby Smart, and that the media handles things through Kirby Smart. They don't want to be the media outlet that makes the program look bad, and I think there's a deal going on there. And that's not exclusive to Georgia. This is a lot of SEC football haven, small town type places. Not that Athens is the smallest town in the SEC, but you get my point. If it was in Knoxville, it would have been out. If it's in Athens, maybe not out. If it's in a big city like Pittsburgh with a lot of other things going on, it doesn't happen until it's public record in terms of media reporting.
Right, and then even public record, it depends a little bit on the media in town. You know, and Rashad Weaver, that's a little bit of a distinctive name, you know. But if Fred Smith plays for your team, you know, does the person at the paper recognize the name? You know? Sometimes it's as simple as that. You know, if the quarterback's name is a recognizable name and he gets arrested, well, the police reporter at the paper good enough to recognize that name or not? You know, then it might last a couple more days.
Addison on Twitter's got another question. And hey, keep the interaction coming on Twitter at OutKick360. Can Paul say if the scout who had the weird vibes about Wilson was one of the ones who knew about the Weaver incident? Because if so, Titans, please hire this person and pay him whatever he wants. You could say that, Paul, because no one knows who they are.
I could say he would be a very good hire, and I doubt he's available.
But you can't say that if he's also one of the three that knew about Weaver?
Yeah, less I say, better.
Okay. Bummer.
Give him away.
Bummer. We name names at times, but we don't name sources. That's the rule on this show.
David Reed would be a great hire. Yes, that's right.
David.
Where's
David. Where is it? My shoes, please, critique. And my sock combo. Come on.
His socks are horrific.
Horrific. They're fish on them, Paul. You'd like them. If these were on pants, you'd really.
What are they?
It's like fish.
Sharks. Look at those teeth on those bad boys.
Oh, sharks, yeah.
Yeah, but they're red. That's the problem.
Fish.
It's not, I mean, I don't like the fish, but I definitely don't like the red.
Fish, but
Yeah, I mean, I've always got a weird color socks.
no, he's a big sock guy.
Yeah. Some people are watch guys. I'm a sock guy. Butch Jones is a big watch guy. You know, he wore a different watch all the time. I like socks.
What's the most you've paid? We know how much Paul has paid for underwear. How much have you paid for socks?
I'm not buying like the Tag Heuer
$100 for 4 pair?
No, I'm not spending that much money. It's more of a
3 shirts, pair
if
of
I
underwear,
see a
pair of
good
socks.
if I see a good 4-pack out, I'll
And a
buy
pair
them.
of socks.
Yeah.
But it's more of like a Christmas gift. That's a
Which
good
I
idea
want.
for family. Like always buy me some crazy socks. Sometimes it's too crazy. I have like peanut butter and jelly socks that I never wear.
Well, you
I have one that you've seen that are Superman socks that have a cape coming out the back.
I've seen
the
that.
red cape.
Peanut
I cut that
butter
off.
jelly socks.
Yeah.
This is a guy who would take you off of his personal draft board for liking Pokemon.
And wears Superman socks.
Look, if I showed up to a meeting wearing peanut butter and jelly socks, I wouldn't draft me. If I were a top prospect, I could have the arm of Aaron Rodgers, which some claim I do.
Hey, guys.
No. Football.
Nobody claims
And
you
then if I met
Nobody
with
claims.
me with peanut butter and jelly socks, I'd be like, pass.
Can I get this
I got
camera?
weird vibes from that guy. He really likes PB&J.
Can I get this camera? Nobody claims he has the arm of Aaron Rodgers. Nobody. Even these very naive 4-year-olds that are playing ball with Big Bad Chad. Nobody's ever said,
I don't know.
hey, Big Bad Chad has the arm of
rocket
Aaron
arm.
Rodgers. Nobody's saying it.
If you want a Aaron Rodgers simulation, you can get 10 years old and go catch a pass from me. That's the simulation.
No.
Hit us up on Twitter at OutKick360. More from the Tennessee Power Hour straight ahead on the OutKick Network.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Really excited to finally have some in-person OutKick VIP events. We're at 6th and Peabody, Old Smoky, Yeehaw Brewery. Awesome day, great questions, good to shake everybody's hand. It's just good to be able to get out and see everybody.
We love to meet with the people that make us possible as a show, the people that tune in, the people that watch, the people that listen.
A lot of these VIPs interact with us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. And now we get a chance to come out and hang out, watch games, and interact with them the same way we would interact with the three of us on a daily basis. It's awesome.
If you're at a VIP event, you're going to hear more about the inside jokes, stuff that goes on behind the scenes. You can ask us anything. We want to be with listeners and viewers as much as possible, so we're thrilled.
Looking forward to doing a lot more of these VIP events as we continue to grow.
It's an incredible experience. I would advise everyone out there, if you're a fan of OutKick or OutKick 360, to sign up and be a VIP.
The Tennessee Power Hour on OutKick 360. The crew is all here today. Chad, what does the Tennessee Power Hour mean?
Tennessee Power Hour means that we are going to focus on the great state of Tennessee, the volunteer state, specifically Nashville and out. We're going to go with the Titans. We're going to go with the Tennessee Vols. We're going to mix in some Nashville Predators. We're going to mix in some Vanderbilt Commodores. Paul opposes talking about the Memphis Grizzlies or anything in that terrible city, as Paul calls it. But everything else is fair game across the state.
There'll be a jersey retirement coming up soon, though, Paul. Don't you worry.
Well, and then I'll speak.
We're a little over a month away from the 360 Masters at Topgolf, all to benefit the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Tennessee. You can sign up by going to our link tree, which is available at the top of our Twitter handles and at the OutKick 360 Twitter handle page. And you scroll down, just hit the Eventbrite link. You can sign up there. But we have bays available, just a handful left for the OutKick 360 Masters, all to benefit Catfish Jake and his team that's raising money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Again, this is coming up Thursday evening, June 10th, at Topgolf Nashville. All proceeds benefit LLS, and we hope you'll join us there. Again, for more information, hit us up on Twitter. It's also pinned. Reed has pinned this to the top of the Facebook page as well. Just search out OutKick 360. The Titans did not pick up, or will not pick up, the fifth-year option on Rashaan Evans, their former first-round pick from 2018. No big surprise here. He's the 22nd overall selection. They're opting not to pick him up because, quite frankly, he's played more like a day 2 or early day 3 pick than a round 1 selection where they got him. He is one of 7 or 8 players from the first round that teams around the league chose not to pick up the fifth-year option for. And I found it interesting, and I'm blanking on the name, the offensive lineman who was linked to Vrabel from Ohio State whenever Vrabel took over. I'll think of the name in a moment.
Taylor Decker?
No. A center. Or
Price?
offensive guard. Billy Price.
Yep.
Billy Price and Leighton Vander Esch are also on this list.
Vander Esch
From
is
that
purely
draft.
on injury.
From that draft, we thoroughly discussed Vander Esch,
And
Evans, and Billy Price was one we also discussed. So,
Well, Vander Esch is a good player.
You could say, oh, they shouldn't have drafted Rashaan Evans. Well, based on the discussion of players that we were looking at, the players that we were pinpointing to the Tennessee Titans in that draft in the first round wouldn't have had a fifth-year option either.
Yeah, Vander Esch is a good player. He's got an injury problem, which
That's my point. And so is Billy Price.
Yeah, and Billy Price.
He was banged up and then couldn't make his way back to the starting lineup.
Yeah. Look, Rashaan Evans is a big disappointment. I mean, he's a better athlete than he plays. He's slow.
He's a good player, but he's not a great player. He's not a first-round talent.
He processes things slowly. He's got one really good element to his game, which is short yardage and goal line, which doesn't even come up in every game. You know? So you got a first-round pick who's a goal line short yardage specialist. I mean, this is another indictment of Robinson and Vrabel. You know, you shouldn't be going inside linebacker in the first round except once in a while, and that guy's got to be an extremely good player. And they did not get an extremely good player.
So I think to pick up a fifth-year option for the position.
9.75, something like that, guaranteed, and now it guarantees the moment you exercise the option.
I think you have
so
to
this
be,
is for 2022.
You need like a Terrell Edmonds type player,
game changer,
to pick up a fifth-year option and negotiate a long-term deal, which Rosenhaus is saying that the Titans told him
that's all spin,
that they're not picking up the fifth-year option, but they hope to negotiate a long-term deal prior to him becoming a free agent in 2022.
Which is why they drafted
we'll throw that out.
Monty Rice.
But my point is, for the position and the investment on the cap and everything, like, I'm not expecting them to make the investment on inside linebacker. You would make the fifth-year option investment on tackle, on pass rush, on corner, on quarterback. You see what I'm saying?
But this is 2 picks
receiver.
they've made at positions where you don't pay that kind of money. Right tackle and Jack Conklin, which right tackle and left tackle are combined in the fifth-year option number. And so you knew Jack Conklin's number was going to wind up being huge. And you don't want to pay that kind of money to your right tackle when you've got a high-priced left tackle. So that's a thing where the fifth-year option becomes unlikely even if you're very good. And then Conklin had injury issues. And now a second spot where you don't want to pay that kind of price tag for an inside linebacker unless he's transcendent. And he's not close to transcendent.
No.
So this is bad roster planning. Even if he was good, and he's not good. So it's bad talent identification.
No, he's
it's bad
good.
roster planning. Great.
He's a good player. He's not a first-round talent. Jayon Brown is a good player.
Yes.
But the value is viewed differently with Jayon Brown based on where they drafted him.
Exactly. Jayon Brown's a find in the 5th round. Rashaan Evans would have been a find in the 5th round, but he was not going to be a 5th rounder. They traded up to get him in front of New England. It'd be great if he was on New England.
You had the numbers of the teams that didn't exercise the 5th-year option, right?
I've got them. Hang on, I'll
7
pull
or
them
8.
up.
It's a small
I have them
percentage
saved.
of the league,
Yes.
and the Titans once again find themselves in a
In
small
that.
percentage of the league you don't want to be in. That's the main issue. That's not the part of the league you want to be. You want to be in the camp of your first-round picks are great.
So here are the
They're
players.
impact players, and you exercise
And
that
they've not
option.
done it once. They've done it once. They exercised the Dory Jackson last year, and then they cut him when you could still cut the last year where you could cut a guy without it having been
It's actually
guaranteed.
more than because Josh Rosen is of this draft, and he was cut from his contract.
So that eliminates him.
So there's Leighton Vander Esch, Billy Price, Rashaan Evans, Hayden Hurst in Atlanta, Rashad Penny, let's
He's not
see,
good.
Terrell Edmonds, Taven Bryan, Mike Hughes, Sony Michel. That's the group for the 2018 draft that did not have their 5th-year option picked up by their team. The trend here is you're not getting a 5th year if you're a first-round pick. Here being in Nashville, based on what we've seen from the
Well, is
draft.
that-
We've
okay,
yet
but
to
is
see
that
it
more of
happen.
a- all right.
We've yet to see it happen with a great player.
Exactly.
Because
Let
we
me
haven't
ask this
seen
question.
a great player.
Is that because this is a mindset of the organization that we're not giving the 5th-year
No,
option,
I
or
don't
is
think
it
so.
we have not drafted well in the first round?
Not well enough. The good test case would have been Corey Davis if Corey Davis had played like he played in his final year a year earlier. Then we would have known. But they had no reason to do Corey Davis, and that number's gigantic, but they had no reason to exercise Corey Davis's 5th-year option based on his 3rd year, and you're making a
like
decision off the
14
3rd
million.
year.
Paul, right
None
now,
of these guys have
give
had
a prediction
good
on
3rd
Jeffrey
years.
Simmons.
Jeffrey Simmons will get it exercised.
As of now, yep.
That's good news.
Yes.
I see that as good news if that happens.
That's progress, forward progress. And Jeffrey Simmons, if he continues to progress, will get a second contract, which is real progress.
I also heard, I can't remember where I heard this, someone said that the Titans found a loophole in the rule with Adoree Jackson, and the NFL changed that loophole, much like they did how they ran clock in New England.
No.
Which is a joke. The new CBA mandates that if you pick up a 5th-year option after the 2017 draft, which is the last draft where a team could do this, prior to the 2018 draft, Rashaan Evans is a part of this. This is the first group that is a part of it. If you pick up the 5th-year option on 2018 and beyond, it's guaranteed. The 5th year is guaranteed
The
on
moment
the
you
spot.
exercise it.
Prior to that, you could pick up the 5th-year option and then cut that player,
It didn't guarantee until the start of the league year in
which
question.
is what the Titans did with
and
Adoree
they cut
Jackson.
him just before that league year started.
So
It
they-
wasn't a loophole.
It was not a loophole,
It
it's
did
the rule.
lead to a question about why you wouldn't exercise
more?
that option to give yourself the possibility if the guy had a great, like with Corey Davis, you could have exercised that option and said, well, if he has a great season, we can reassess it after that great season. Now, the number was still too big. It was a bigger number than what he got from the Jets.
Let me just, while we're talking Evans briefly, could he be a trade option? Just for cap purposes? Could you trade him for a player in return? Could you trade him for a tight end instead of having to go sign a tight end? Is there a way to maneuver cap number there, or can you get a future draft pick?
I don't know who's loving it.
Maybe Dean Pease. in Atlanta. Again, I'm just throwing out who would.
I don't think he has a lot of value. So, I mean, if you're really in love with Monty Rice and you're ready to go forward and you think he doesn't need a year of seasoning, if you get something for him, I wouldn't be averse to it. I just don't think he has a great deal of value. I mean, I saw Titans fans, of course, throwing out, Dean Pease is going to love him, so trade him for Julio Jones. That's him and a second for Julio Jones. Yeah.
It would be a second and Rashaan Evans.
Right,
it's not Rashaan Evans and a second.
Right. Rashaan Evans is a throw-in in that. But the Titans fans, more than anybody in the country, I think, are just into trading their trash for treasure.
According to NFL Update on Twitter, the Titans have $5 million in salary cap space.
Now, are they accounting for the rookie pool or no?
It just says numbers to change as signings, cuts, and restructures occur, is all it says. And it's updated as of today, May the 4th. So anyway, I found that number to be a bit low compared to where it would normally be this time of year based on the rookie pool that you're due. But once you, the $5 million, once you get past your rookie pool, Paul, aren't you pretty much done? And that's why you have to be creative with, I mean, they need another tight end. Maybe they're, we think they're okay at receiver after the draft, but it doesn't look great with their depth chart at receiver. So I think we could see some more roster maneuvering with some veterans. That's why I bring up Evans.
Well, the one telling thing that was said about tight end, Robinson said he's been approached by some teams about tight ends on their rosters. Hurst,
Hayden Hurst in Atlanta
could be one of those guys.
I know. Would you do a swap for those two?
Ngakwe.
Fourth year guy?
Yeah. Ngakwe's the wrong name. Who am I thinking of in Cleveland? Ngoku.
Oh, yeah.
Njoku. Yeah.
I think
Zach Ertz
maybe
is another
one.
name that's
Zach
been
Ertz
mentioned.
has trouble staying healthy. A healthy Zach Ertz would be great, but I don't know how many games you're getting out of him.
Reports where they were asking for a third for him in the draft and couldn't get it.
There's a big push from Titans fan site in Nashville about Delaney Walker. Look, they were done with Delaney Walker 2 years ago when he had trouble staying on the field. Guys don't disappear from the league for a year at 37 and resurface. You got to get the sentiment, squeeze the sentiment out of you. 31 teams aren't looking at him. The Titans who cut him are not going to be looking at him. If they're bringing back a former Titan, it's Michael Pruitt. Delaney Walker's not resurfacing in the league. He's not resurfacing in Tennessee.
So, guys, a common complaint that we get from people from time to time is you're just so negative, right? You're so negative. When we come back, Tennessee Athletic Director Danny White talked about negativity in the Tennessee fan base, and I have some thoughts.
Oh, I can't wait.
That is straight ahead on OutKick 360. OutKick 360 live from Studio G in Nashville, Tennessee, Blackbird Studio and the Blackbird Academy. TheBlackbirdAcademy.com, the website to go check out if you're interested in making this a career. There's someone on YouTube that's battling David Reed, saying that Reed couldn't come do his job. Let me tell you something. If you work here, you're going to be able to do the job by going to TheBlackbirdAcademy.com, where you can become a pro in studio engineering, audio engineering. If you want to do this in studio or on the road, this is the place right here in Music City. TheBlackbirdAcademy.com for more information. You see all the details there, plenty of videos, tutorials, and much more available at the website. Remind me, guys, before we sign off for the day, Paul mentioned Isaiah Wilson to Chad earlier. I will put the ball on the tee that with a topic that will make Paul very upset.
Oh, come on. I've already had a day.
By the way,
this is something you'll appreciate, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
By the way,
These guys are laughing at me.
I'm thrilled that the guy that Reed was arguing with referred to us as the media elite, because I've never been described as elite in anything. So thank you.
Elite in your torso to leg mismatch.
Elite torso length
He
is what I
said
was
something
described
to
as.
the effect of the media elite always argue about doing all these jobs when they couldn't do the job. Or
my job.
Or my job or whatever. And then
Dennis
Reed
said,
asked,
what's your job?
Yeah, so what's your job? He said, that's confidential. It's like, well, no. If you're going to claim that, we're just going to assume you're sitting in your mom's basement typing on a computer.
Which I could do.
Yeah,
Unless
yeah.
you are literally right now running operatives in Russia or China as a part of the Central Intelligence Agency, your job is in fact not confidential. You can tell us exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I'd seriously doubt that's your job if you're watching us and chiming in on the YouTube page right now. So it's not confidential.
He's monitoring
Tell us
us.
what you do, then we'll make fun of it.
He's monitoring us.
And then we'll make fun of it.
No, we won't do that.
So we know what Danny
We
White's
respect
doing.
your job. We promise.
Danny White is not liking the negativity of the Vol fan.
I respect Danny White's job. I respect it. He's got a big job ahead of him.
He's got a tough one.
Big job ahead of him as Tennessee's athletic director. But he took on that challenge, and he was at a good job, and he left a good job to be the AD at Tennessee. This was his quote to Brent Hubbs in VolQuest.com. One of the things I've noticed is a challenge, and I knew about it coming in, but it's probably a new challenge for me, is some of the negativity of our fan base. I think some of that is probably bred from the fact that in a broad base, we are not asking them to be participants. Now, what he's talking about being participants is this huge plan he has to get more donors. Not necessarily huge donors, but have a lot more people involved in fundraising and donating. So we want you to help out. We want you to feel like you're involved in it, that you're a part of it. The wins and losses are yours too.
Well, if I'm involved in it, I want more.
Exactly. So
Yep.
this is my reaction to it. He's not wrong. There's nothing he's saying is wrong. Negativity is a problem. But negativity is a problem because the football program has been bad for 10 years. And fans have watched administrators and coaches make poor decisions that have put Tennessee in this spot. It's a lot of their own doing. So, of course, there's negativity because fans are looking around, just like the guy said to Reed in the YouTube page. Everyone wants to say they could do a better job and they couldn't do my job. I'm telling you, there are a bunch of Tennessee fans who could have done a better job running that athletic program or running football programs than what's been done at Tennessee for the last 10 to 12 years.
Yep.
So the negativity is real, but the negativity is justified also at Tennessee. I think that you want a little more negativity right now than acceptance. What I mean by that is if the fans are negative, at least they believe they can be more, that this program should be more. And I'm talking about football. Basketball's in good shape, everyone say. If you follow baseball team right now is playing. They're tied for the SEC lead with Vandy. No one saw that coming. In good shape. Football program, though, is what Tennessee fans hang their hat on. They want football to be better. You don't want acceptance to set in. What I mean by that is if Tennessee fans get to the point of acceptance and say, this is what we are forever, we're never going to be good again, we're a cellar dweller in the SEC or mediocre at best, that's not what you want if you're Danny White. So again, Danny White, what he said about negativity, spot on. I like that Danny White is honest. He won't hold back. He'll tell you what he thinks. The only way, though, Danny boy, to solve that, I'm not talking to Sleepy Dan right now. This Dan has a lot of energy.
He's asleep.
This Dan has a lot of energy and doesn't sleep a lot. Turn it around. Make good moves. Make good hires. Make good decisions. Win some football games, and that negativity will be washed away. You watch how fast Tennessee fans come back to positivity if they have something positive to watch.
Here's my question and my concern. Is he a little naive here as a guy who is able to declare his team national champion and have Central Florida throw, I'm talking the region, not the school, throw a parade and buy into the idea that, yes, they were the best school in the country despite the actual national championship having a loss and his school not having a loss, and people buy into this enthusiastically and have no negativity? Is he expecting to be able to do things like that at the University of Tennessee? Because if he is, he's going to be in for a big shock. Now, his brother's a big-time guy at a big-time school, and I would think he's in touch with the realities of a big-time Division I program and not detached into the, quite frankly, Disneyland, Disney World type environment he came from.
So I think naive is the wrong word, Paul. I will say he lacks experience when it comes to this. And here's what I mean. He lacks the experience of what Tennessee fans have experienced the last 12 years. He has not lived that reality. So you walk into a situation, you walk into a room where people have been sitting in 100-degree heat, working side by side for 4 hours. That room is not going to be in as good a mood as you're in when you come in from the air conditioning. Well, Danny White just walked into the damn furnace of Tennessee fans, and they're sitting there sweating, pissed off, saying, why can't things be better? And he's like, what do you mean? Things are great. Life is good. You got a big brand, big endowment, lots of fans. This is awesome. So I think that lack of experience. Also, I think Danny White's a great hire, and I believe he's going to do a good job at Tennessee. He's never done a job like this. He took over at Buffalo and UCF where they had nothing. He started from ground zero and built up an athletic department. They don't have history at those schools. He's created history. He created a sideshow, a scene everywhere. Buffalo, they had concerts where they had tailgates. He brought people in. He created everything from the ground up. He's now coming into a place that has a lot of history, but now the program is damaged, and he has to resuscitate that history.
Different job.
And revive a huge fan base that right now is getting closer and closer to acceptance, which is not good.
But that's also really puzzling to me why Josh Heupel has been so quiet in that regard to create and manufacture buzz and momentum.
I don't think I'll say this. I think it's smart of him not to do this right now.
I mean, he's almost been Jerry Stackhouse silent.
I mean, he's done interviews. I wouldn't say that much. He's going to join our show next week. Also,
I'm saying up until the spring game, like there was just kind of we're doing a spring game and we're going to have some coverage with the media members that are out there. But the whole negativity aspect, to me, you have to approach that with just spinning it with, here's the new regime and this is the new Tennessee. And you've even said that they need some of that.
Well, they need some buzz, but I also don't think that manufacturing buzz this offseason is going to pay off, because if they go out and look bad against Bowling Green in Pittsburgh, it's not going to matter. So I'll say it this way. Could Josh Heupel do more? Could they be doing more to try to generate excitement? Yes, I think they could. I think they've taken some really good steps by some of the players, not just trying to bring back players. Everyone tries to bring back alums when they get there and get them involved. But getting Alvin Kamara back, for instance, that's big. Yep. He hasn't been back since he left.
Right.
And he helped convince Juwan Mitchell, who Tennessee just signed yesterday from Texas, who was their leading tackler, to transfer. Because he talked about they play the same junior college, Butler Community College, and Kamara at the spring game had a chance to sit him down and talk to him about making that transition to Tennessee. But bottom line is, Tennessee fans don't want to hear a Butch Jones hype train. They're still sour about that. What they want is results on the field. So I'm not sure any level of effort he can make right now to generate buzz. I don't know if it would pay off, because I think people would be skeptical until they see it.
I think you have to see some unbounding energy from that program. And I'm not saying the fake Butch Jones-esque brick-by-brick mantras. Like, I'm not saying slogans. I'm just, they're to me, it's just kind of very flatline now.
I think here's what he's trying to sell.
Very even. I want to see the jolt.
This is what they're trying to sell.
The boost.
It's fun. Football is fun here. Come here, it's fun. We've got food trucks. We've got music at practice. We're playing fast.
Well, that's good for the
we're
kids.
We're getting excited.
But it hasn't spilled over
But
to
Danny
fans.
White, Danny White's been
It's not going
fundraising.
to.
That's what Danny White's been doing. He's been fundraising.
Well, he's also been in
But-
COVID protocols until he just got his second vaccination.
Yeah, that's all.
So now he
and
can
again,
get out
that's
and
all
about.
fair too. But for the discussion of, well, we see too much negativity. Well, give us something else.
That's my point is I think what Danny White is saying is right. I think he has the right to say it. I'm not mad at him for saying it, but I also look back at Danny White and think, well, duh.
Right.
Of course the fans are negative. What would you expect with what they've lived through? And oh, by the way, there's an NCAA investigation going on.
That too.
Right now into the football program. You want
Hanging
everybody
over
to be
our head.
positive about that?
We will get more in depth with all of this on Friday with the VolQuest Hour with Brent Hubbs and Austin Price. Paul, as we wrap up, this is, I mean, you're going to love this, I think. I want you look into this camera and
Right there.
describe your thoughts on the Houston Astros returning to Yankee Stadium for the first time since they completely cheated and screwed your team out of a championship.
Well, I predict that the fans at Yankee Stadium will be lathered up. Lathered the F up. And
Put that on a T-shirt.
and that's going to be fun to watch. I wish there were more of them there.
Yeah.
But let me tell you this. It's been a long time for the Astros. They got bailed out somewhat by
Yes, they
COVID
did.
and empty stadiums and stuff. Yankee fans don't forget. They're going to be garbage cans banged. There's going to be noise made. There's going to be reminders offered. And I hope that the Yankees who got off the schneid against the terrible Detroit Tigers are able to sustain some of that good baseball. The Tigers struck out, Chad, something like 53% of the outs in the Yankees-Tigers series were strikeouts.
I wish they would have saved their baseballs for tonight,
Yeah.
throwing those on the field tonight.
Aaron Judge hitting some home runs. He's probably got some tightness that
Yeah, I'm about to say that soreness is going to set in any minute now. Too many home runs, sore again, lower body soreness, out for a week.
Yeah, I'm sure young Simon Kuharsky's baseball is rained out tonight, which will enable me to watch some of this. And I wouldn't mind a few hit by pitches, quite frankly. Just keep it, below the clavicle.
Meanwhile, as we wrap up, I would also say you can go follow Chad on Twitter at @TheChadWithbro, where he's being accused of poking the bear for simply admitting that he's thankful, and I am too, to work for a company that, we're not called into the office to discuss, what we said bad about the Tennessee Titans today.
I don't think I said anything. First off, if this is your definition of poking the bear, you've never really experienced someone truly poke the bear, because what I've been saying on Twitter is pretty tame. And it's also pretty logical to understand that what we give you on this show is an honest assessment that's not biased at all. We're not hearing from a professional team in town.
Yeah, we don't have to worry
because
about-
we have no paid relationship.
We don't have to worry about
with
Gil
a
Beverly
professional
calling
team.
our boss.
Yes, we don't have to worry about anyone in any organization calling our boss or calling us to tell us what to say. I don't think that's very difficult for people to figure out.
Listen.
That we're giving you honesty.
We'll end it right here. There's a guy on, I think he's going off the air right now. He said we and our for 3 hours in a discussion of the Titans. We and our. If you want we and our, we're not your people because they're not ours. Period. They weren't when we were there, and they sure as hell aren't while we're here. But that's not my team. It's a team I write about and talk about. Period.
But to our viewers, you are ours.
Ours. Yes.
And we are yours. Let's open our hearts to each other. Let's embrace each other. Full hug.
There-
all together as one. Bang, bang.
Well, there was also a time where there was a gentleman,
Lady or gentleman.
a young man who thought that Paul Kuharsky's home was ours because the door was unlocked. And to that, Paul gives this message.
Stay the hell out of my house. You and everybody on Dad's acid or anybody's acid. So I'll say it backwards. Lock the locks. But don't block the damn box.